Our next panel is fantastic. It is called Cloud-Driven Everything, and it's going to explore all of these issues and more. And ladies and gentlemen, I would love for you to give a very warm South Summit welcome to our moderator for Cloud-Driven Everything, who is the Associate Dean for the Executive MBA programs at IE Business School, which is, of course, part of IE University. Please welcome to the stage, Budimir Shever. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, good morning. It's my pleasure to be here today. We have a great topic and a great team of panelists, the experts in cloud. One of them is physically with us today, Jose Angel Lopez, and the other one is online. So Jose Angel, please, would you join? Thank you. And then we have online, do we see Peter somewhere? Hi Peter, good morning. Peter Speck, good to see you.
Hi guys.
Yeah. So we'll exchange a couple of words about the cloud and the perspective and experience from each of them. Today, everybody's talking about software as a service, right? So how do we see the perspective of cloud as a service, and what are the opportunities with this? Maybe Peter, you would want to start?
Hey, first of all, thanks for hosting me here virtually. And
Sure.
I think the cloud obviously has been one of the biggest drivers of the software ecosystem and adoption of that. And for us as a venture fund, what cloud has enabled is shaping a lot of the things we look at as a VC fund and the startups we spend time in and the innovation we look at. So I think probably half of the deals that we spend time with are SaaS companies. So there's lots of happening in that space. But I mean, starting maybe on the high level of it, what cloud really has done is created accessibility and affordability to software, and the same for increasing productivity and for companies to do more powerful things with software in a more easier way, and having that in a flexible and scalable way. And I think the area that we as a fund in particular are extremely excited about is the space of SaaS and the SME space, because that's probably on the enterprise side you've had software for quite some time. They had teams to run it on premise, and the cloud has really enabled that to give it to SMEs as access. And I think what we really see there is a trend of consumerization of SaaS for SMEs, and that happens in particular in the classical areas where you do the digitization of back offices such as IT security, customer service, HR. There's, for example, a company in Barcelona that Creandum invested in, which is called Factorial, a prominent HR software startup. And I think these are topics that really excite us. But even more than that, I think the current trend goes to things like remote collaboration, SaaS, data stack. There's lots of companies currently coming up in the data stack space and DevOps space, as well as product and analytics. But I'm going to pause here, sort of like hearing sort of like the other views on where cloud impacts you most.
So that is great. So in line with the opportunities that you are just describing, what challenges do you see for those companies or for that market?
Hey, I mean, it's looking at it from the venture perspective. I think first of all, it's amazing that you have so many. Software is creating the most unicorns out there in the venture space, and everything that VC funds do is looking for multi-billion-dollar companies, and the most of them are created in the software space. So the space really exploded in terms of funding, in terms of outcomes, and in terms of what we sees back. And I think with that comes a challenge out of it is also that there's a high abundance of SaaS tools these days, which means, for every segment, you will have many companies that are funded. Look at, remote collaboration software or video conferencing software, etc. There's probably like 20 out there that you can elaborate, and lots of them get lots of funding. And you can imagine that for every segment, from HR, customer service, data tools, analytics, product, etc. And with that really comes a flood of SaaS tools that on the one hand for companies are challenging to keep track of. So when we talk, for example, to our startups, lots of startups have the problem that that's hard for them, to track their SaaS spend, to keep track of which SaaS tools they're actually using, to train employees, for another SaaS tool. And then it becomes more complex, sort of like on the company side, the more tools there are. And for us as a VC fund, this means on the other hand that I think over the past couple of years, SaaS investing has become much more commoditized. As for VC funds, it's pretty easy and more easily accessible to know what good metrics look like, what good companies in the SaaS space could look like, what to aim for there, how the market will develop, how adoption curves look like. And it's much more easy for SaaS funds to evaluate, which currently leads, I think, to probably an overfunding in SaaS and to valuations rising a lot, from multiples initially being around 15 to multiples around 50 plus that you currently see in the early stage, like revenue multiples between like a 50 and 100 that you see in early stage SaaS funding, which will over time, commoditize also returns in the SaaS world if you sort of like go in with these high entry valuations. So I think it's on the one hand, it's the best that can happen for the industry, that SaaS gets so much funding, so much adoption, and there's so fantastic large outcomes. On the other hand, it attracts so much more capital that the venture game in SaaS simply has been changed in the past 18 months, I think.
Thank you, Peter. You were talking about commoditization. Jose Angel, maybe from your perspective, what are the opportunities when you talk about the new business models? And I would even double click on that more from the upcoming European funds perspective. What opportunities and business model you see that can be taken advantage of?
Thanks, Budimir. Thanks for the question. And Peter, glad to know you, even if it's virtual. Hope next time we can meet face to face. Just 30 seconds. As you have seen, my job is enterprise strategist. I work for Cisco. That means I help large corporations defining the right strategies on the digital transformation. And the cloud is one of the basis of it, right? I'm in Cisco since 1999, so you can imagine my experience around cloud transforming organizations. And what Peter has said about SaaS is absolutely true. I think there is, to me, there are three elements he mentioned that are flashing to my experience, right? The operational effectiveness of the organizations, right? How you provide a lot of agility on the consumption of those models applied to many of the departments in a company. But as well, there is one third point, which is the security, okay? Coming back to your question, there are 5 major areas. I think this amount of money coming from the European Union, if we invest it right, it's going to be a unique opportunity for the entire country to make that transformation we need. Either in the next 3 years, if we don't make the investment of that money right, technology speaking, we will go down. But if we make the right decisions, the economy will become more digital. There are 5 major areas. If you allow me to talk a little bit more technical now on this. One area is the collaboration tools, all based on the cloud. And this is part of the SaaS process, right? As a service. We have Cisco WebEx as one example in our company on a SaaS product that we are getting thanks to the pandemic a huge increase on the usage of that. We have more than 600 million users per quarter, and we have increased the usage of these collaboration tools. In only 1 year, 75%. This is amazing, right? But what people don't know is that we are heavily investing on this as a service collaboration tools hosted on the cloud with more than 400 features. One feature that is super interesting, we can provide real-time translation from English to more than 100 languages, right? So imagine the power of getting something in the cloud, making people interacting in organizations across the world, basically. The second area is security, right? 60% of the organizations are seriously considering to move all their applications to the cloud over the next year. That requires security. Now, the data center is the cloud, and the network is internet. So if we don't have a proper slim security across the end-to-end model, and how we integrate it, that's going to be a problem because the data is going to be in places that we don't control any longer, okay? I don't know if people know this as well. It's another fact from Cisco. We have more than, we are one of the largest security companies for the enterprise market. We have more than 5,000 people fully dedicated to this area. Fully dedicated to this area. And we have invested only on security more than $6,000 million in the last 5 years, okay? So we have things like SecureX that will have an end-to-end view from the device to the cloud, to the user, to the application. The third area is 5G and Wi-Fi 6.0, especially the edge computing applications. Those are going to be a trend that is very small today, but is actually picking up a lot. We are working with more than 30 major service providers in the world for 5G deployments. So this is an area that is going to increasingly pick up, together with a next generation type of networks, especially the optical networks, where all the silicon is going to provide a lot of, all the high speed that the different cloud applications and the users, regardless where they are, will be able to connect through the cloud infrastructure. We need to keep in mind that if you adopt the right optical connectivity solutions, you can decrease your cost of maintaining these specific connections nearly 50% down. So this is an opportunity for companies to accelerate as well the transformation, and artificial intelligence and machine learning on how we make things more effective. If I can have just 1 minute, right?
Please.
Basically, 33% of the first 80,000 million euros are going to be dedicated for digital transformation. We want to help our country on that. We have defined a number of pillars in Cisco to help on this digital transformation. We have a pillar called digital health, very important, and with a lot of appetite for transformation. Digital education, we have seen it in the pandemic, what that means, okay? The public administration has a hell of opportunities to get more digitalized, and the global digital connectivity, where we need to reach areas that they don't have internet today, even in our country, right? Together with the digital economy and the hybrid work, which is going to be here forever, okay? Nearly 50% of the organizations will have hybrid work, at least over the next 2 to 3 years, because of the pandemic. I guess these are a lot of opportunities, right?
Yes. And in line with that, what are your perspective about the uptake of cloud when we talk about specifically Spain? And can you compare it with the rest of the countries?
Yeah. I think I can talk about what is going to happen in Spain with the adoption of the cloud, but we have made a study across the world, so we can extrapolate what we are going to say here with other countries as well. But specifically in Spain, we have interviewed, and this sounds pretty rough, right? We have consulted more than 33,000 organizations in the world, in 34 countries, only 1,000 in Spain. All of them think that the cloud is present on the core strategy of the evolution on the, about technology transformation. You know, basically the investments are going to be towards the application in the cloud, because the application is where the money is the business. But then how the multi-cloud infrastructure is going to be transformed is the second one, together with the security and the collaboration. 40% of the investments will go into collaboration. So if you look into what Peter has said about SaaS, I think it's an amazing opportunity to make investments that you can get return very, very fast if you do the right things when transforming your organization towards the journey to the cloud. Mm-hmm. That's the landscape in Spain. Okay.
We have mentioned European funds, right? So hopefully the funding won't be a problem. What are the key, in your opinion, what are the key success factors for the cloud adoption in companies as part of the overall digital transformation, right? So it's not just only about the technology.
Yeah, we need to be looking into the business enablers, right? And the business enablers is going to provide more access to users with better customer experiences. But as well, when we look into the public sector, is how can we make more efficient the public sector and reach out, for instance, in health, with tremendous benefits to patients. I mean, there are, let's say, non-tangible business measures that we also care about. In the education system is exactly the same. How can we maximize that people are trained to leverage the as-a-service cloud collaboration platforms to keep providing transfer of knowledge to the schools? So the business drivers are there, right? More efficiency, but one of the things that we need to also invest is about the talent. Getting the right talent for the technology transformation, looking into the cloud, is going to be a tremendous challenge. And this is another investment that the country must make, right?
Thank you, José Ángel. Peter, what are your perspectives on the non-technological aspects of the cloud adoption, in your view, both from the VC side and from the enterprise side, being either an SME or the large enterprise?
With the non-technological adoption, you mean the users using it, or?
No, I mean, the adoption of the cloud as a model, right? Both from a user perspective and the let's say the functionality perspective.
Yeah, I think from a user perspective, at least in Germany, we see two things happening. As mentioned before, I mean, cloud adoption is rising rapidly. I think both in SME as well as in enterprise space. The only areas where it's extremely difficult, I think, is when it touches extremely sensitive data in enterprises. There we still see some hesitation, or if it's companies from the public sector, where we still have that barrier of people using on-premise versus the cloud. I think from a user perspective, the barriers have just been eliminated so much of using the cloud. Security improving so much, and ease of adoption and ease of use of implementing cloud-based solutions has risen, and is the far superior choice. So I think from that perspective, from the user side and the not looking at the technology behind it, it's a different game than it was 10 years ago. And I think something which is the standards have shifted nowadays. I think cloud and SaaS is the new standard, and it's rather the rare case that people, at least in the standard use cases, doubt the cloud, I would say.
Thank you.
But I have to say I'm a bit biased here, because I look at a lot of startups and the startup ecosystem, and there, of course, the openness is much higher. I think you have probably some different examples of that in the more enterprise world.
Sure. So today, whether we talk with a young out-of-school graduate or a C-level of a large enterprise, the topic inevitably boils down to it's not everything about technology. And I know, Jose Angel, you have been and you are involved in some of the largest, the most complex projects of digital transformation, including the cloud. Without mentioning names, would you please share some experience from real life with us?
Absolutely. I mean, the talent is going to be one of the battles we need to keep in our minds when fighting against the problems to transform ourselves into a more digital economy. Because getting into a more digital economy will have a lot of benefits for the environment, for making people equal, getting access to education to others they don't, also healthcare, right? So the social benefits are there, but without the talent that we need to make that transformation is going to be absolutely difficult. I can give you examples, tangible examples of my experience on how the talent is really a showstopper sometimes. I can tell you I've been in projects. I was recently in a project in Tokyo, in Japan, with a large service provider. And in the new way of working, the talent we required is very different to the traditional organizations. So we had to take people from the country, but also we have to take people from outside the country and make them work together. Peter mentioned something that is DevOps. There is a mind shift, a change in the mind, right? It's a mind shift towards how the agility will bring benefits into the technology and ultimately to the business. So getting two different workforces with different cultures, not understanding well the new way of working is actually a problem. How works from a DevOps perspective the agility on the software? What means to get a minimum viable product? What means to go into the market with that minimum viable product and start adding new features and correcting mistakes from the user experience in a very accelerated way? If you do it for one product, for a startup, it's particularly, I'm not going to say easy, but when you make a huge transformation for a company, a huge company, you need thousands of people aligned into this concept. So if you don't have the right mindset, but also you don't have the right talent, that transformation can be in danger. And I can tell you one thing, I'm sure that very, very soon we are going to start seeing in countries that the GDP growth might be challenged because the lack of talent. Okay, so that is my experience in large transformational projects across the world. When the talent is not aligned, you have to make it aligned, right? You have to bring it over where you need it, and there is going to be a battle for talent in the near future. That battle for talent already exists.
So from your global experience, having lived and worked in many countries, how do you see the situation in Spain when it comes to talent?
Well, in Spain, I'm very confident about one thing. There is a huge spirit of entrepreneurship in the startup ecosystem. Mm-hmm. That is fantastic for innovation. Also, there are a lot of universities who have understood this, and they are trying to change the way people are basically, let's call it trained during the years of university. But also there are companies in the corporate world that they have understood that they need a partnership with this ecosystem of startups and with this ecosystem of universities. In our case, we are making investments on those areas. As I've mentioned, we have one of the pillars is the digital education, right? Where we have tools available for universities to understand the world of cloud much better. We have tools available from our corporate. We have something called Cisco DevNet program. We are giving developers that will be in the corporate world the tools to work on DevOps mode with products from Cisco to get them integrated in the cloud in rapid fashion with development. So I'm particularly enthusiastic about the capabilities of our country, but the funds that we are going to get from the European Union in my opinion, based on my experience, needs to be addressing this particular problem of talent. Because, as I said, we have just a few years to converge to the top. I'm very confident that we have a lot of people that they are already on the startup mindset to go into the digitization process of the country.
Peter, what is your view from Germany on the next, let's say, 3 years perspective on the market in Spain when it comes to talent, and also in line with that, what is the role you see for the academic world and the universities, public and private, that will play in actually generating those talents and getting them out to the market?
Let me comment on it from the startup side, like about the talent that creates the next SaaS companies or cloud companies out there. I think we as a fund are very bullish on Spain and the development that is happening in the past years. We think there is sort of like good technical universities. There's also good business universities. There's a wide amount of people that are interested in startups. There's a vibrant ecosystem in Madrid as well as in Barcelona, a little bit beyond as well. But of course, those are the two main hubs. Where we still see the lack is, I think, the amount of experienced talent. So when startups get to a level where they go to Series A and Series B stage, oftentimes people look also more for international talent. For example, if you are running a successful SaaS startup and looking for a VP sales or a VP technology, there are not so many companies out there in Spain that have, there are VC-backed startups that are in between, let's say, 10 and 50 million ARR. And there are just much more of that in the UK or in the US, etc. So oftentimes, once you reach a certain maturity, the talent pool level is outside of Spain. But I think we are gradually seeing the shift happening now with the first companies reaching this type of scale. Companies like TravelPerk, Typeform, Factorial, soon Abacum, etc. that from the size have this talent and the experience in people. Where in 3 years, I think the talent also in the more senior level and more later stages will be more homegrown than we had in the past 5 to 10 years. But I think it's still a gradual process, slightly behind UK or Germany. But I think we clearly see the transition of the big, let's say, aircraft carriers, the large lighthouse startups in the ecosystem that transition the shift and attract even more talent also from universities as role models.
Thank you, Peter. José Ángel, from your experience and from the perspective of the Spanish market, do you see different challenges of big companies, large enterprises, as opposed to SMEs, or how do you compare that with the experience from the rest of the markets?
Yeah, definitely the challenges are different, right? But even large enterprises or SMEs are having the same problem, right? How to get more digital, how to transform, digitally speaking, into what they need to get. Those challenges are, let's say, common around security, right? If you see the number of cyber attacks during these last 8 months on the pandemic, 60% of the organization have been suffering an attack, right? And many of them were not ready. So security is one of those. Then the talent, as we have mentioned, is obviously as well one of those. I think the as a service concept in the cloud can help, especially a small medium business, because that can provide agility and a very easy way to define, for instance, security strategy and get from the cloud as a service what you need. For large enterprises, is a different problem as well. Even security is part of it. There are two things. What is the technology transformation they need to choose. And at the end, it's going to be, the word of cloud is going to be hybrid, and it's going to be cloud native. So you will have to build your applications as if they would be in the cloud with containers, microservices, APIs connecting all these different microservices. That's a very complex challenge. So the next thing is to select what is the partner that can help you make that technology transition. So common problems across SMB and large companies, but the way to address them are radically different.
Thank you very much. It has been very insightful to see your respective perspectives, both yours, Jose Angel, and Peter yourself. And I hope that we have provided at least a foundation for understanding about the cloud and about the opportunities and the challenge for the cloud moving forward. Thank you very much to both of you, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much. Thanks, Peter.